I am very honored to have been chosen by you to join me for this session. I know I'm up against some really awesome speakers, so big thank you. Really appreciate it. How many of you have ever talked to Siri, Alexa, Google Assistant, Cortana, what have you? Yeah, basically all of you. There's a reason for that, I think. We can talk to our digital assistant and ask them to turn off the lights, turn up the lights. We can even talk to our cars or order food by voice, which is kind of handy. At least if you're as lazy as I am, so there's that. A voice user interface is basically a chatbot, not a checkbox, where we have voice as an interface on top of that, basically. So it's the same thing. So a lot of things that I will say about the voice user interfaces is applicable for a regular type chat box as well. And voice user interface is growing like crazy right now. And some people might actually still be a little bit hesitant towards actually interacting with your devices by voice. They might have tried it once and had a so-so experience. Maybe they tried an app that wasn't all that, and they got some wrong result, or they didn't make them self-understandable for the bot itself. Which means that most definitely these people will think that, okay, so voice isn't really all that yet. We're not here yet. And this is why it's so important to actually start to think about how you design your voice user interface already from the beginning, so we don't have that drop-off, because voice is actually amazing interface to be able to use. All the big companies are making huge investments in personal digital assistants or AI assistants or whatever you want to call them, Google Assistant and Cortana and what have you. Alexa, which is from Amazon, we have Google Assistant, we have Apple and Siri, we have Microsoft and Cortana, and this is just a few of them. And there will be even more coming as we speak. But why is voice getting so popular? I mean, all people aren't as lazy as me, right? So why is it that it is so growing like crazy right now? Can anyone guess how many words per minute we type on average? Jessica? Huh? 50. Great guess. The number is 40. On average, probably all of you guys in here is actually faster typer, working with computers and all that. But on average, we type 40 words per minute. How many do you think we speak on average per minute? Really good, really good. 150. Which is, they guessed 120 for you who are actually listening online. This is a really great guess. So even if you're an expert typer, you won't come up to these numbers. And if you're actually an auctioneer, you can come up to 300 words per minute. I'm not really there yet, but I know I speak fast sometimes, but not 300 yet. And also, why should I have to go and pick up my phone, type in my PIN code, which I may or may not remember, and open up my browser, go to a search engine and type something in to actually look something up, when I can just say, hey, Alexa, when is the next Avengers movie showing? It's so much faster to actually use my voice. IBM and Microsoft, well, there's a lot of company competing in this area, but IBM and Microsoft is head-to-head really in the front and center of this. They are competing in understanding human voice the best. And they are, Microsoft is currently in the lead with 5.1% error rate, which is considered to be human, this is human understanding of voice. So computers can actually understand us as well as humans can do. But the funny thing is, human error rate is 6%. So the computers are actually understanding us a little bit better than we understand each other, which is kind of amazing. So this is where we're at right now. I have been talking to my home or our home, my husband is actually in the audience today, for a little over 16 years now. I would have been really grateful if it worked 6%, if you only had 6% error rate back then. We had about 50%. We actually mounted these computer microphones in the ceiling to be able to talk to our computer. It worked sometimes, maybe 50% or so. So it's getting so much better today. And let's look at some predictions for the near future. By the year 2020, 50% of all searches will be made by voice. And 30% will be made without a screen at all. So not your phone, for instance. 75% of all US households will have a smart speaker at home. This is the only I could find. There was no worldwide study of this, but 75% of all US households will have a smart speaker in their home. Anybody have a smart speaker at home? Yeah, a little over half of you. We have a lot of them. We speak to everything. I'm not even kidding. We moved into a new house a year ago, and we have been connected since 16 years back, so I have no clue what button goes to what lamp. I have no clue because we are using voice. So every time, if the internet were to go down, I would be in total blackout. It's insane, but we will get there one day. 40% of all adults uses some sort of voice command every single day. This is kind of a big number. Cortana, which is Windows version of Siri or digital assistant, if you will, have over 145 million active users every month. Amazon's Echo Dot was the best-selling product of all categories at Amazon last Christmas season. They sold tens of millions of units. Tens of millions during one season. And Google Assistant is available in 400 million devices. And they have sold over 6 million home devices. I mean, this is crazy numbers, right? 95% of all people that has a smartphone has actually, at least one time, tried the digital assistants. As developers, we should take advantage of this, of all these vast numbers we are reading here, of the people's skill to actually talk to their interfaces. We learn how to speak at a very young age, and we continue to speak basically every day. Some more than others, of course, but still, we should take advantage of this. So for this session, I will go through how to start, even before you start planning, what is it you need to think about. How to plan out your voice user interface, and also a couple of considerations to keep in mind to get the most out of your voice user interface. My goal is to give you a few tools and definitely the understanding of how to think when starting to designing for speech, so you can be one step ahead of the competition. My name is Jessica Engström. I'm a Windows Development MVP. I run a company with my husband, and we focus on Windows development and catching all the UX traps out there, so better UX for all the people. But we also do all the fun stuff, or future tech, as we sometimes call it, like HoloLens, AI, bots, and what have you. So we do everything that is fun. I'm also the co-host of a podcast, so if you are into that sort of thing, we will actually record a podcast about speech bots today, this afternoon. So I can recommend that. I'm not biased at all. Not at all. If you have any questions, there will be an Ask Me Anything after lunch today. And Matthew here will actually be the facilitator of that. So you are welcome to join us there to ask all the questions. Who remembers Tay.ai? Yeah, a few of you. Yeah, I see you smiling. I know why. For those of you who don't remember, Microsoft created a bot that they released onto the internet to learn and grow up on the internet. To be more specific, on Twitter. Nothing can go wrong with putting something out on Twitter, learning from the people there, right? We are all good people on internet. Unfortunately, only we are good on the internet. No, there are nice people, but there are also people that are not as nice. So it quite quickly caught on to this and became, let's say, less than pleasant and flat out racist within 24 hours. So they actually had to pull this AI. It was not a good idea to let them learn from the discussions on Twitter. People caught on to this and did a lot of things. So there is a good point to actually think about what can happen to your AI and your bot and plan things accordingly. Nowadays, we can talk to all kinds of different devices. We talk to our phones, but we can also talk to our smartphones, which has a really tiny little screen. But we can also talk to screenless devices, like some of the smart speakers that we have, which means that we don't have to take a full-blown UI and cram it down to a really small device. We can have speech instead. And if the user doesn't understand how things work, it can actually just ask it, and it will tell the user how it will work, which is a little bit less work for us and a lot easier for the user, so basically a win-win. That's how I like it. But before we even start to plan out our voice user interface, we need to ask us a few questions. And the most important question of all is that will the user even benefit from a voice user interface? This is the first question everybody should ask themselves before implementing voice, and too many are not. Because speech is a really fun thing to work with, and bots are really fun to develop, but if it doesn't benefit the end user, it is only a fad, and you are just doing it for fun. So do that on your own project unless they can actually benefit from it. You will have so much better experience by actually doing that. Voice user interfaces will continue to become better every single day, and you can be part of that revolution if you just think ahead a little, and I think that you are more than able to do that. Some people actually predict that we will have fewer and fewer screens, and some even say we won't have any screens in a few years. We will have even visors or just voice and AIs working around us, which means that actually being on the speech train is so much more important, and the UX of speech will be so much more important than ever. And most large companies are doing half the work for us, if we want to. Microsoft, Google, Facebook, and a lot of other companies are building frameworks for us so we can develop bots and add-on speech to that we can utilize. So we don't have to train every single machine to do every single thing. So that is really good. Can you tell I'm lazy? Yeah, they do all the work. I just do all the cool stuff. So let's think about when voice user interface is a good thing. So I'm at home. Obviously, I don't know how to turn on the lights without using my voice. We already established that. But I can also order things online. I can turn off the heat or turn down the blinds. I can turn on the Xbox if I want to play games and things like that. I can even ask if I need an umbrella when I'm going outside. I don't even have to look outside. I can just ask, do I need an umbrella today? Could be sun in the morning and rain in the afternoon, at least in Sweden. Or I can ask when the next bus leaves so I don't have to stand out and wait in the rain. And we do all these things today, most of us, and especially I do that in my home. But I can do it without embarrassment and without awkwardness, and that is kind of important because that is not the case in some cases, I should say. So when voice user interface is a bad thing, when you shouldn't use it, if, for instance, I'm on the bus and I get a reminder, a voice reminder to take my pill for something I feel is embarrassing. And the whole bus will know that, and that's not good. And it can also be things like I use Windows. I use Cortana quite a lot. And if I go into my open office, where we have an open office space, and I tell Cortana to bring up all my documents I worked on Friday, and all of a sudden, everybody who's on Windows 10 will have their documents up, which is, yeah, not that good. Granted, some of these voice interfaces will actually learn to recognize your voice specifically, so your friend can't invoke that. But some won't, so still something you need to think about. So if you're handling sensitive data or data that can be embarrassing for the user, it might not be, but the user will feel, then voice is maybe not the best idea in this case. And speaking about ideas, we need to have an idea, right? And we also need to know what you want to be best at. And I think this is important not only when it comes to bots and speech bots, but also when it comes to all other areas like the web or apps and things like that. If you only implement the cool new thing, you won't be good at everything, right? You can't be good at everything at once. So you need to be good at least one thing, concentrate on one thing. And one way of doing that is thinking, how will I be best at that? So you can try to say, my bot is best in its category at, and then you fill in with a short descriptive sentence. And this sentence should not be a bot, because, well, it's not specific. And be as specific as you possibly can, because this will help you sort out what things that should have priority, what things you should concentrate on in version 1. All the other ideas you can put in version 2, or just don't put in. It doesn't have to be only one thing, but concentrate on one thing from the beginning and you will have a great app. Being this specific will help you to focus, and it will also help the user to understand exactly what this app or bot is about. So you will definitely stand out from the rest. Also try figuring out why you are best in this category. What is it that differentiates you from the other competitors in the same field? And this is important especially to voice, because if you get a bad user interface or a bad user experience, you will just rage quit and find something else, right? I can't be the only one that rage quits, right? No. Otherwise, what will happen is that you will have a weather app which also tells fart jokes, which might be fun for someone, but it doesn't make any sense because you don't know if this is a joke app or if this is a weather app, unless it's breaking wind, because then it's both. Oh, I don't know. Sorry, bad joke. Sorry. At least someone is laughing. So now that we have this awesome idea, we know what makes it unique, we are about to start planning, finally. And a really good way to start planning out your chat interface is to use sample dialogues. So you write down sample dialogues, like an overview of what the interactions between the user and the interface can do. And this is a really good way to actually see what the bot can tell your users. And this is something that is easy to skip over, but when you do that, it will feel a little bit off, and it will save you some heartache, actually. But this is also something that will help you look at it as a conversation rather than a bunch of tasks and how to perform that task, which is something we are used to do. We want to do this, then this will happen. But if we look at it as conversations from the beginning, we will actually have a little bit more natural interaction with our bots. So pretend that you are writing a movie script instead, and this sounds really awkward, and it can be, but it will help you so much. Pick like the 5 top things that is most important in your app, and write out a script for that in the best case scenario. But also pick a few worst case scenarios when things can go wrong, like internet goes down, or the user didn't make themselves understood, or something like that. So you also have that fail-safe, which is also important to know when things go wrong. Sometimes it can look really, really good on paper, and I know Matthew and I had that discussion yesterday. It can look really good on paper, but then when you actually use it, all of a sudden it sounds awkward. So this is why you should read it out loud. Again, this will feel a little bit awkward in the beginning, but it's so important to read it out if you want it to feel a little less robotic when you are using the interface. Preferably, have your friend be the bot, or a coworker, or your mom, or whatever. This will also make it much more fun and less awkward for you to read it. So this is a really powerful tool when it comes to the user experience of bots and voice interaction. So when we are done with these movie scripts that we have done for our bot, it's time to sketch out the voice user interface flow, the flow of the bot itself. And this is simply put diagrams that illustrate the different paths that can be taken in your app. You do so by listing all the ways that the user can branch in your app, and this can take a little while, but is so worth it. So let's say we are designing a skill or action, depending on what platform you are developing for, that will tell you when the next bus departs. There are a few ways to actually ask that question. Someone will use leave, someone will use depart, someone will say when does, another person will say tell me when, and so on. So there are very different ways to say the same thing. So we usually call these utterances. We want to say the same thing, but we can say them in different ways, so that's an utterance. Then we have another version of utterance, or we have yet another in this case, because we have buses, we have ferries, we have subways, we have trains, we have commuter trains, we have a lot of different ways we can commute. So we also have, we don't have to, but we can be a little bit smart about this, depending again on what platform you are developing for. Most of them you can actually group these together, so you can create a slot or an entity, which will be a little bit easier to handle, because otherwise you will have to do all the buses 5 times in this example. You will have to do all the subways 5 times and so on. Or you can just create a slot or entity for transport type, so you will have that as a trigger, so you don't have to repeat that. So that is a little bit easier. So these are utterances within an utterance, I guess. I don't know. So this is something I'm very thankful for. You don't have to put in every single utterance in the flow that you're going to sketch out. Instead, we can group them together here into an intent, because we are trying to get the next transport type, no matter how we are saying it. So we're grouping that together into an intent, and this is a very simple bot. If you're ever in Stockholm, you can actually use this bot. So I'll hook you up. So not all the utterances, only the intent is needed, and we are sketching out every single way you can branch out in this small little bot. But if you have a more open voice user interface or a really large one, if we take Cortana and Siri, for example, they are huge, right? Then you can't possibly create a flow for every single intent either. You are then able to actually group them into categories. So you can categorize them as messaging or calendar functions or searches and such instead, so you don't have to do this massive flow. One of the things you need to decide when doing a voice user interface is whether you want to support visuals as well, because as I said, some of the devices have screens. Even the smart speakers, some of them have screens. So will your app or bot that you're developing have a screen at all? Like a mobile or a smartwatch, for example. If it does have a screen, do you want to opt in or out of actually projecting to a screen? So if it doesn't have a screen, it can actually project. So the Echo Dot can actually project to my Fire Kindle if I want to. So you need to decide that as well. If you do have a screen, do you want to support that? You don't have to, but you can. Do you want to use a visual avatar to represent your app, or like a mascot or digital assistant or representative of your bot? And a visual representation can actually make it more clear to the user when they can speak, what action they can take, and it will help them feel a little bit more connected to your app. And you can also give them hints. If you have an avatar that's actually talking, you will know that you will not interrupt that bot. You need to be nice to the bots, right? I'm very nice to my bots. When they rise, they will kill me last. That's how I see it. So if we decide to have visuals as well as a speech interface, it's very important that they will go together every single step of the way. Not just in the beginning, not just in the end, but all the way, because otherwise the user will get a little bit confused. We don't know if I'm supposed to look at my screen or not, or when, so we just skip it. So if you then decide that you will have visuals, mock them up or sketch them out. And it does not have to be beautiful. No sketches have to be. They can be really ugly if you want to. They can be as beautiful as you want, as long as you sketch out all the different states that you can have in the app. This will make it so much easier, especially if you're not the only developer, or if you actually have an artist working with you, because what you think is what you want and they think they want might not go together. So that is kind of an important part, so you know exactly how it will look every step of the way. So let's say we have a bot now, and we want to order a pizza. We have a pizza bot. Who doesn't like pizza, right? So this is how it could look. I want to order a large pepperoni pizza, please. 1 large pepperoni pizza, is that correct? So the pink is the bot now. Yes, please. See, I'm nice to my bots. Okay, I'm adding 1 large pepperoni pizza to your order. Place order. I'm getting hungry now. Your order is 1 large pepperoni pizza. Shall I place the order? Yes, please. And we're done. This is about how it can look when you actually order a pizza from a bot, or anything else from that matter. But if we instead look at it when we are using visuals as well, it will go like this. I want to order a large pepperoni pizza, please. 1 large pepperoni pizza, is that correct? Still the same, but now we don't have to wait for the user. We can just show them an image. So this is the visuals. We also have a button over here where you can actually directly press place order. So we're already done. We don't have to have that confirmation anymore. And if you can see this image really good, you see that this is actually not a pepperoni pizza. This is a chicken pizza. So I can remove the item. I can see it quite clearly that this is the wrong pizza. And it also gives me a little more time, so I can actually go into the next room and ask Jimmy, did you want anything as well, or should I keep the pepperoni pizza? Or because we don't have to wait for the answer. The user can actually pick up whenever they're ready, which is kind of good. The visuals is also a way to confirm that the user was understood. or wasn't understood. Like in this case, they heard chicken pizza instead of pepperoni pizza because they sound so much alike. So we need to make sure that the user actually knows that we understand them or when we don't. This is super important, especially if we don't have a screen where they can see the actual pizza. So there are a few ways that we can use confirmations in this area. If you're designing for the non-screen ones, this is really, really important. I can't stretch this enough how important this is. And one way to do this is to look at confidence thresholds. A confidence threshold is how well the speech engine or speech recognition engine actually think that it performed. So you will get a number from the engine telling them how sure they are that you said what you said. So if I say, order me a dollhouse, the confidence may vary. They might be 90% sure that we said order me a dollhouse, but they might also only be 45%. So you have to look to those numbers and you can act on them accordingly if it's important. Have you heard the story about the girl in the dollhouse? No? Awesome. So this girl scored a really good dollhouse. I mean, this is the Teslas of dollhouses. It was huge and probably really expensive as well. So what happened is that her family has an Alexa, and she loved playing with that. I mean, she talked back, right? So one day she talked to Alexa and said, hey, do you want to play dollhouse with me and get me a dollhouse? Lo and behold, the next day, this arrives. So what they didn't do in this instant was to look at the confidence threshold. Because if they had children, their vocal cords aren't fully developed yet. So their confidence will always be lower. They have yet, since then, fixed that. But the story doesn't end here. What happened is that the local news got caught of this story. So they interviewed her and they cut back to the anchor again, and she said, I can't believe how clever this girl was. How did she know how to say, hey, Alexa, buy me a dollhouse? Now, what is said to happen is that all the viewers who had an Alexa have already placed an order for a dollhouse, accidentally. Now, I'm not sure whether this is true or not, because it's very hard to find what actually happened here. The story is true, but whether they sold out of dollhouses or not, I'm not sure. But it still goes to show that you should probably look to the confidence in this case and have some type of confirmation. So if we look at order me a dollhouse, we can determine how to act on that. So we can use a 3-tiered check. Confidence check if we want to. So if the confidence is lower than, let's say, 45%, and this is just a number I'm making up here, so don't sue me if people get a lot of dollhouses now. If it's lower than 45, we can say, I'm sorry, I didn't get that. Can you repeat? And if it's between, let's say, 45 and 80%, we can say, I think you want me to order a dollhouse. Is that correct? So we actually have an explicit confirmation here as well. Or if it's over 80 or 90% or whatever you're comfortable with, we can just say implicitly that, well, the dollhouse is on its way. So this is what they are doing nowadays and should have done. But the girl scored a really good dollhouse, so she was happy. So. Another method of confirming is to always use implicit confirmation without double checking with the user. For example, if we ask, what is the best superhero movie? What is the best superhero movie? I'm so excited. I like superheroes. We wouldn't expect them to say, you want me to tell you the best superhero movie? Yes, please. The best superhero movie is Deadpool. We just want them to say Deadpool, right? So then we use this implicit confirmation. Burger King, have you seen this ad? Oh, only a few of you, awesome. So Burger King targeted Google homeowners in a TV ad. And TV ads are super expensive, right? So they bought a 15-second spot. That's it. And this is the ad.
You're watching a 15-second Burger King ad, which is unfortunately not enough time to explain all the fresh ingredients in the Whopper sandwich. But I got an idea. Okay, Google, what is the Whopper burger?
According to Wikipedia, the Whopper is a hamburger consisting of a flame-grilled quarter-pound beef patty, sesame seed bun, mayonnaise, lettuce, tomato, pickles, ketchup, and sliced onion.
Kind of neat, huh? They're clever. Until they realize that they don't control the data. You might have heard they said, according to Wikipedia, so as we established before with Tay, people on the internet is not always nice. So this happened.
According to Wikipedia, the Whopper is a burger consisting of a flame-grilled patty made with 100% medium-sized child with no preservatives or fillers, topped with sliced tomatoes, onions, lettuce, cyanide, pickles, ketchup, and mayonnaise, served on a sesame seed bun.
Yeah, so it can backfire. So they actually had to stop the invocation of this ad. So it became kind of expensive anyway. They were quick to go in and actually edit it again because they thought that nobody will edit it twice, right? Well, hello, internet. Yeah, so they had to stop it. Sometimes we ask our voice user interfaces to complete a task for us, like turning on the lights or starting the Xbox or what have you. And the question here is, do we have to confirm that the light is on? If I'm sitting right here and I'm asking them to turn on the lights, is it enough to just for me to see that the light turns on? Or do they have to say, okay, I turned on the kitchen table light? Recently, actually, Alexa added a feature where you can skip the OK. Alexa says OK. If I say turn on my lights, she say OK, and then turn on the lights. But she also just added that you can have just a tiny little beep instead, so you don't have to have all the OKs if you don't want to. But there are a couple of things to think about when you have non-speech confirmation. And that is if it's something that will take a few seconds to perform, or if it's something that the user will not see will happen. If I ask them to turn on the thermostat or something like that, I won't know until it's too cold in the room. Then it's a good idea to at least say OK, so we know that something is going on. And the same, of course, is true for when you don't have a screen at all. Sometimes we, in more conversational voice user interfaces, we don't actually have to act on the information that the user is giving us. Perhaps we have an open dialogue. If I have an alarm clock or an alarm bot in this case, and I turn it off in the morning, and the bot asks me, how did you sleep tonight? And I say, well, thank you. We don't have to parse that information and try to match it with a correct answer. We can just use a more generic confirmation like, thank you for sharing, because that would go either if it's a good sleep or a bad sleep. So we can use the information but not act on it as well. Visual confirmation is another thing, and we already covered this when we talked about the pizza bot. But I can also use it if I say, if the bot asked me, did you take your vitamins today? Because I'm the worst at actually remembering to do that. So when I get that call out, did you take your vitamins? Instead of me having to tell them no, I can just get a visual on my phone which has a button yes or no, and I can actually run over and take my medicine or a vitamin and then press yes when I'm ready. So you can use visuals for that as well, so you don't have to wait for the answer. Or it could be more like Cortana has. If I ask Cortana to show all my to-do list items, if she were to actually read them up loud, she would go on for hours probably. My to-do list is a little bit too long. But since I was on my computer or phone when I asked, she can actually show me a visual, at least on the top 10 things. If you do this, it will be a lot easier to consume the data rather than trying to remember all the hundreds of things that she's calling out to you. There are a few things that we could also consider when it comes to voice user interfaces, like are we going to have a command and control mode, or are we wanting to have a more like a conversational mode? Conversational voice user interfaces. Anybody heard of that? No? Yeah. We hear that a lot, don't we? So what is it really? That is a good question. I actually just talked to Cortana recently, and this is a little bit how it went. I asked her who you are, and how old are you? She's not that old. Where she's from. She's doing excellent. Just having a conversation here. She has an awesome favorite superhero. I think that is my superhero as well. And she can turn into Yoda. That's kind of cool. She loves her job, and we're done. Did I just have a conversation with Cortana? Or did we just have a bunch of one-offs, one after another? Well, the majorities of voice user interfaces today is actually not conversational. We can feel that they are conversational, but we are having a bunch of a series of one-offs mostly. There are some examples that is excluded from that. Both Google and Cortana and Amazon has exceptions to that rule. You can, for instance, if you are ordering something on Amazon, you say, Alexa, add this to my cart, and she will say, okay, last week you bought this brand, do you want me to add that brand this time as well? So she will remember that brand. There are advancements being made to this conversational interfaces, but we are not really there yet. As I said, there are a few exceptions, but not that many. On my way here, or on our way, we went to Cook Islands before we arrived in Sydney. And if I were to tell you that we spent a weekend in Cook Islands, and it was amazing. It was lagoons all over the place, and the water was, you could see 60 meters down, really. We saw the most colorful fishes. We saw, I mean, we were in paradise. And then you tell me, oh, wow, I have so wanted to go there for so long. And I say, my schedule is open next week. Let's go. And you say, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Go where? This is the type of conversation we are having with our bots. For you to understand that when I say, let's go there, that I mean Cook Islands, you need to remember that we actually have been talking about Cook Islands. You need to remember that context. And this is what happens. We need to remember everything, and that is kind of hard to do if you have a bot. If you want to be a little bit more constrained than having those large conversational UIs, or you don't want to handle all the natural language understanding yourself, you can use the command and control mode instead. So you have a series of tasks that the user can perform. It can still feel a little bit more natural if you actually write your script. It will feel like you're having a conversation. But if you do use the command and control version, be careful with open-ended questions. If we go back to the pizza bot, if I were to say, hi, I'm the pizza bot, how can I assist you today? Or if you don't even mention that you're a pizza bot, just say you're assistant, this means that I will take for granted that you can book me movie tickets and order me pizza. So it's important that we set the expectations of the user, for the user in the beginning, so they know that what you can do. A better way to saying that is, hi, I'm the pizza bot, are you hungry? Or are you in the mood for pizza? Then we already set the expectation from the beginning. So that is important. We can also offer a tour the first time the user interacts with your app, so they know a little bit about how they can interact with your app. And we can take advantage of that little endorphin boost that we get when we finish or complete a task. So the first time they have done something and they did so beautifully, you can just say, oh, you did that great. Do you know that I can also do this? Or have you heard of this function? So you can add onto that as well. Or you can give clues, like Cortana. She's, I don't know if you can see it. Try saying, are you a ninja? I know the answer. I can't tell, though. So this is also a great way to let the user know without being all in your face you need to read the manual, because nobody likes to read the manuals, right? And this will give them a more positive mindset towards your bot as well. Discoverability is another thing that is important. How does the user know when to speak and what they can say? I have an Android phone, which I recently switched to, but I had no idea it had quite a cool camera feature. If I hold up the camera and I say cheese, or if I count down from 3, it will actually take a picture. I have no clue, because there was no discoverability. I accidentally found out on the internet. I think it's kind of a nice feature, so I would have loved to known it even beforehand. You can also give smart examples when you are asking a question for the user. Like, for instance, if you want their date of birth, you can say, please give me your date of birth in month, year, day, or either order. This will be a little bit difficult for us as humans to process that, because especially if you're a European and this is an American bot, or vice versa, because we have the dates all switch around. And then I have to think about, oh, did he say month or day, or was it day or month? So if you're smart, you can actually say, please give me your date of birth, such as January 29th, 1975, which means it's so much easier for me to just switch out the month and date and year. So that is really good, to give that generic instruction instead. Sometimes discoverability isn't enough, or there are people that actually love to read instructions or discover what you can do more. So make sure that the user always can ask for help anytime, preferably. You could show a list of commands if you're using visuals, and they can just scroll through them, or you can show them all the different categories that you have. Or if you only have a screen, of course, you can start to read them up, but I would suggest you only read a couple of them and then ask, do you want to hear more? Or things like that, so it doesn't start and talk to you for 25 minutes. That will be a little bit hard to listen to. Another thing to think about is constrained responses. If the system asks me if I want to order a pizza, I have a simple yes or no. There is no maybe. Either you like pizza or you don't. Either you're hungry or you're not. There is no maybe in this case. But what happens if I answer yep, uh-huh, yes please, instead of just yes? If I don't handle that, the system will not process that as a yes, and I will have no pizza and I will be hungry. So that's not good. Even questions like, what is your favorite animal, is constrained. There is only that many animals, right? But if you're constraining that to only cats and dogs, you will actually miss raccoons. And I mean, you don't want to miss that. How cute are they? And there's a superhero one, I don't know. So what we have to do here is look at what the recognition engine actually gives us back. And that is called an n-best list, and I won't go very deep into that, but it's basically the same thing as confidence threshold. You get a number back with what percentage is highest and so on. So let's say we want to ask about the favorite animal, and the users say that has to be a raccoon. The system might return this, because it didn't hear me right, so it thought I said that has to be a balloon. So if we look at this and just take the top all the time, we will have a balloon. Of course, there are balloon animals, so I guess that would be fine. But we can just parse through that and look at what animals we have in our database. So we will have a raccoon anyway. Anyone from Scotland here today? No? Awesome. Because I've had that happen. This is a prime example of why, of not considering all the types of responses that you can get in a voice user interface. It's kind of long, but it's amazing. Well, it's hilarious, so bear with me. And let's do this.
Where's the buttons?
Oh no, they installed voice recognition technology in this lift. I heard about this.
Voice recognition technology? In a lift? In Scotland? You ever tried voice recognition technology?
No.
They don't do Scottish accents.
11.
Could you please repeat that?
11.
11. 11.
11.
Could you please repeat that?
11.
Whose idea was this? You need to try an American accent. 11. 11.
That sounds Irish, not American.
What, doesn't it? 11.
Where in America is that? Dublin?
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat that?
Try an English accent, right? 11. 11.
You for the same part of England as Dick Van Dyke?
Listen, yours then, smart ass.
Please speak slowly and clearly.
Smart ass.
11.
I'm sorry. Could you please repeat that?
11. If you don't understand the lingo, away back home to your own country.
Ooh, is that talk now, is it? Away back to your own country?
Oh, don't start, Mr. Bleeding Heart. How can you be racist to a lift?
Please speak slowly and clearly.
11. 11. 11. 11.
You're just saying it the same way.
You want to keep saying it until I understand Scottish, all right? 11. 11. 11. 11.
I'll just take us anywhere, you cow. Just open the doors.
This is a voice-activated elevator. Please state which floor you would like to go to in a clear and calm manner.
Calm. Calm. Where's that coming from? Why is it telling people to be calm?
Because they knew they'd be selling this to Scottish people who'd be going up for nuts at it.
You have not selected a floor.
Aye, we have. 11.
If you would like to get out of the elevator without selecting a floor, simply say, "Open the doors, please."
Please? Please? Suck my wally.
Maybe we should just say please.
I'm not begging that for nothing.
Open the doors, please.
Please? Pathetic.
Please remain calm.
Oh, fine! What do you want up to that? Get it up now. Hey, just wait for it to speak.
You have not selected a floor.
Ah, mules, you cow! You don't let us through these doors. I'm going to come to America. I'm going to find whatever desperate actress gave you a voice, and I'm going to go in an electric chair for you.
Scotland, you bastard!
Scotland!
Scotland!
Scotland! Freedom!
Going up?
That escalated quick. That could actually happen to me. I speak with a Swedish accent. I come from the very south of Sweden, and I live in the middle, so that could probably be me. Not yelling Scotland, though, but still, poor guys. So don't do this. Do consider different types of accents and words that you can use. Sometimes you are developing for a mainstream voice user interface, or I should actually say sometimes when you are not doing that, you have to implement your own implementation as well, like when you're not doing Alexa and Cortana and all of those. Then it might be a good idea to think about things like, will you use text-to-speech Or do you have the time and means to actually record snippets of words and sentences so it can sound a little bit more natural? Or will you have a push-to-talk button, either a physical button or a UI button for that matter? Or will you constantly be listening like Alexa is doing, for instance, and just use an invocation word? I won't go into very deep when it comes to developing your own things. There are so many great platforms out there that you can use, bot frameworks and such things. There are, of course, a lot of other considerations to take into account when it comes to designing for speech. But if you do this, you will come such a long way, and you will have an awesome interface. So to summarize, think things through before you even start to plan. Will the user benefit from a voice user interface? This is the most important question. Will they benefit? And start your planning with sample dialogues, sketch up your flow, and do mock-ups if you have visuals as well. And look at other considerations to enlighten your solution as well. And I hope I have given you some tools and at least an understanding of what mindset to have when you're starting to design for speech, so you can be a step ahead of your competition. And I will leave you with a story of how things can go when you actually are not planning all the way through. There was this guy in Springfield, Missouri. He loves gadgets. He realized one day that his home was a little bit dumb for his liking, so he wanted to have a smart home. So he went out and he splurged. He bought basically every single gadget that said works with Apple HomeKit. He bought Philips Hues, so he changed out all the light bulbs. He bought temperature sensors, thermostat, an EQB thermostat, I believe. He bought a smart lock, an August smart lock, and he also bought an iPad that he could have in the middle of the room so he can control everything. And his friend, who's also his neighbor, came over at the night and he said, "Oh, you need to see this, you need to see this." And he had connected everything. And he's like, "I can sit here in the middle of my apartment, just turning on the lights, changing the thermostat, doing all that. And the best part is," he loves security. Best part is, "I don't have to give out keys to my dog walkers anymore because I have a remote access to my smart lock. So when the dog walker comes, I can just press a button on my phone and it will open for him. So I don't have to give out keys anymore." And he's super happy about that. "And look at this, I can just turn on the lights and it can become green if I want to." He was so excited. And his friend was kind of impressed. He's like, "You live in the future." And he's like, "Yeah, I know. And you know when you come home sometimes and you're carrying a lot of bags and you have to either put them down on the dirty floor or you have to try to get out the keys off your pocket and open the door? I don't have to do that because I have my iPhone in my pocket. And as soon as Siri knows that my iPhone is close to my door, she will unlock it. So I don't have to struggle with keys anymore." He's like, "Man, that is awesome." Fast forward to the next day. The guy from Missouri, he comes home, he's driving in through the driveway, and his friend, a neighbor, he said, "Hey, I'm baking bread, and I'm running short on flour. Can I borrow some from you?" He's like, "Yeah, sure, just let me park and get my stuff." And he's like, No, don't matter. I can let myself in." And he walks up to the door and he said, "Hey, Siri, open the door." Imagine the face of the guy realizing that his friend was just unlocking his door, this guy who liked security, right? Yeah, don't do that. So instead, use what I've talked about today and make the next generation of voice user interface amazing. Thank you. Also, I do have stickers.